The alarms screamed through every corridor of the Galactic Preservation Station. Red lights flashed in patterns that made Director Kaltesh's 4 eyes hurt. He ran toward the command center as fast as his legs could carry him, which was not very fast since Zentari were built for thinking, not running. "Report!" he shouted as he burst through the doors. The security officer at the main console looked terrified. Her scales had turned pale white, which meant she was absolutely horrified. "Sir, Containment Cell 7 has been breached. The Vexthor is loose." Kaltesh felt his blood go cold. Of all the dangerous creatures they kept at the station, the Vexthor was the worst. The thing came from a planet called Krath 9, which was one of the most deadly worlds anyone had ever found. Everything on that planet wanted to kill you. The Vexthor sat at the top of the food chain. "Show me the footage," he said. The screens lit up with security camera recordings. Kaltesh watched as the Vexthor moved through its cell. The creature was huge, maybe 8 feet tall and covered in armored plates that looked like dark metal. It had 6 eyes arranged around its head. Its claws were made of something like crystal, and everyone knew those claws could cut through almost anything. On the screen, the Vexthor approached the reinforced wall of its cell. It touched the wall with one claw almost gently. Then it dragged that claw down. The wall, which was supposed to withstand a direct hit from a plasma cannon, split open like paper. "By the ancestors," Kaltesh whispered. The creature pushed through the opening. Alarms started going off immediately. Security guards rushed toward the breach. Kaltesh watched them fire their stun weapons at the Vexthor. The blue energy bolts hit the creature and did absolutely nothing. The Vexthor didn't even slow down. One brave guard tried to activate an energy barrier. The shimmering wall of force appeared between the guard and the creature. The Vexthor walked right through it like it wasn't there. That should have been impossible. "How is it doing that?" someone asked. "I don't know," Kaltesh said. But he was starting to understand why 13 different species had gone extinct on Krath 9 before anyone else ever found the planet. The footage showed the Vexthor moving through the facility. It wasn't running or charging. It moved carefully, like it was looking for something. Several times it stopped and appeared to sniff the air. Its 6 eyes scanned everything around it. More guards appeared. These ones had real weapons, not just stun guns. They fired nets made of ultra-strong fibers. The nets wrapped around the Vexthor, and for a moment everyone thought they had caught it. Then the creature's claws extended fully. They glowed with a faint green light. The nets dissolved where the claws touched them. "It's venom," the security officer said. "The claws secrete a substance that breaks down molecular bonds." 23 guards had tried to stop the creature. 23 guards were now in the medical bay. 3 of them might not survive. The Vexthor had been careful, almost gentle in its attacks. It hurt people enough to make them stop, but it didn't kill anyone. That suggested intelligence, high intelligence. That made everything worse. "Where is it now?" Kaltesh demanded. The security officer checked her screens. Her scales went even paler. "Sir, it's heading toward the civilian residential district. Evacuate that section immediately." "Sir, there's a problem. The creature is moving toward the human quarter." Kaltesh's head hurt. Humans. The newest species to join the galactic community. Strange creatures from a death world called Earth that was almost as bad as Krath 9. The humans had only been on the station for 6 months. There were about 200 of them, mostly scientists and their families. The humans were weird. They ate things that were poisonous to most species. They exercised by lifting heavy objects for no reason. They kept trying to touch things they shouldn't touch. Kaltesh had lost count of how many times humans had asked if they could pet dangerous animals. "Contact the human liaison," he ordered. "Tell them to evacuate their people immediately." The security officer made the call. Kaltesh watched her face as she listened to the response. "Sir, the human liaison says, and I quote, 'Did you check if it's hungry? Maybe it just wanted a snack.' Kaltesh wanted to scream. "Tell them this is not a joke. That creature can kill all of them." "I told them, sir. They're asking what it eats." This was not the time for human curiosity. Kaltesh pulled up a station map on his screen. The Vexthor's tracking signal showed it moving through maintenance tunnels now. It was definitely heading toward the human residential area. In about 10 minutes, it would be there. "Seal all the bulkheads leading to that section," Kaltesh ordered. "Maybe we can trap it in the corridors." Heavy blast doors began closing throughout the station. These were the emergency doors designed to contain hull breaches. They were solid metal, 3 feet thick. Surely the Vexthor couldn't get through those. On the security feed, the creature reached the first blast door. It stopped and tilted its head, looking at the door with those 6 eyes. Then it placed both front claws against the metal and pushed. The door groaned. Metal screamed. Slowly, impossibly, the door began to bend. "Get me the xenobiology team," Kaltesh said. His voice sounded tired even to himself. "We need to know everything about this creature. How it thinks, what it wants, how to stop it." "Sir, most of the xenobiology team is already in the human quarter. They were conducting studies on human family structures." Of course they were. Kaltesh pulled up the personnel roster. Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the lead xenobiologists, was in her family quarters in the human section. Her daughter would be there too. Emma, he remembered. A young human, maybe 12 years old in their counting system. The Vexthor was now past the blast door. It was in the maintenance corridors that ran behind the residential areas. It was moving faster now, like it had found what it was looking for. Kaltesh made a decision. "Evacuate everyone from the human quarter. Everyone, right now." "Sir, that will take at least 30 minutes. "Then we don't have much time." Kaltesh pulled up the communication system. "This is Director Kaltesh to all human residents. Please evacuate your quarters immediately. This is not a drill. A dangerous creature is approaching your location. Move to the central assembly area as quickly as possible." On the tracking screen, the Vexthor's signal showed it entering the hydroponics bay. That bay was right next to the residential quarters. Humans loved going to the hydroponics bay because it reminded them of their planet. They often took shortcuts through it. Kaltesh watched the tracking signal and prayed to whatever gods might listen. He prayed that no human was in that hydroponics bay right now. He prayed that they all listened to the evacuation order. He prayed that nobody decided to investigate the interesting alien creature. But deep down, he knew humans. And deep down, he knew that prayer was probably useless. In the hydroponics bay, 12-year-old Emma Chen had just finished her after-school work shift. She was taking her usual shortcut home through the vertical gardens. She was thinking about homework and dinner when she heard a strange sound coming from the tomato plants. Emma stopped walking and listened. The sound came again. It was a strange noise, somewhere between a growl and a whimper. It sounded like an animal in pain. Emma's mother always told her that curiosity would get her in trouble someday, but Emma couldn't help herself. She walked toward the sound. The hydroponics bay was huge, filled with rows and rows of plants growing under artificial lights. The station grew most of its fresh food here. Emma liked this place because it smelled like earth, like the garden her grandmother used to have. She moved quietly between the tomato plants and the cucumber vines. The sound was coming from the vertical garden section. Emma pushed past some hanging bean plants and stopped. There, wedged between 2 large planters, was the biggest creature she had ever seen. It was enormous and covered in dark plates that looked like armor. 6 eyes stared at her from a head that seemed too large. Claws that looked like they were made of crystal or glass stuck out from its feet. Some of those claws were tangled in the irrigation tubes. The creature was stuck. Emma should have been scared. She knew she should have been terrified. But as she looked at the creature, she saw something in those eyes. It wasn't anger. It was fear. The creature was scared. "Hey there, buddy," Emma said softly. She used the same voice she used to use with stray dogs back in Seattle. "You stuck?" The creature froze. Emma could see its whole body go still. Those 6 eyes focused on her with an intensity that should have been frightening. But Emma didn't run. She took a step closer. "It's okay," she said. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature made a sound, a soft rumbling noise. Emma took another step. She could see now that the creature had scraped itself trying to get free. Some of its armor plates were scratched and dented. It looked young somehow, not fully grown. "Let me help," Emma said. She reached for the multi-tool on her belt. Every kid who lived on the station carried one. You never knew when you might need to fix something or open a stuck door. Emma moved slowly, carefully. The creature watched her, but didn't try to attack. She could see muscles under that armor, powerful enough to tear her apart. But the creature stayed still. It almost seemed to understand what she was trying to do. The irrigation tubes were wrapped around the creature's front claws. Emma started cutting them away with the blade on her multi-tool. The plastic was tough, but the blade was sharp. She worked on one tube, then another. "You must have been running fast to get tangled up like this," Emma said. She always talked to animals. It seemed to calm them down. "Did something scare you? Are you lost?" The creature made that rumbling sound again. Up close, it almost sounded like a cat purring. Emma smiled. She freed another claw. "You're not so scary," she said. "I bet everyone thinks you're some kind of monster, but you're just scared and lost. Aren't you?" She freed the last tube from the creature's claws. Now it could move freely. Emma stepped back, giving it space. The creature could kill her now if it wanted to. Those claws could probably cut through her like butter. But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it did something Emma would remember for the rest of her life. It leaned forward and gently touched its snout to her hand. The touch was careful, almost delicate. The creature's skin felt warm and slightly rough, like touching a snake. Emma laughed. She reached up and scratched under the creature's jaw, right where the armor plates met. The creature's eyes closed halfway, and that purring sound got louder. "You like that, don't you?" Emma said. "You're just a big softy." Then Emma heard the alarms. They were distant, but getting closer. She heard voices shouting, the sound of running feet. Security was coming. They would be looking for this creature. They would probably try to catch it or hurt it. Emma made a decision. "Come on," she said. "Follow me." She started walking toward the back of the hydroponics bay, where there was a maintenance entrance that led to the service corridors. Most people didn't know about these corridors, but Emma had explored the whole station. She knew shortcuts that adults had forgotten existed. The creature followed her. It moved on 4 legs, but Emma noticed it could probably stand on 2 if it wanted to. It stayed close to her, like a dog following its owner. That purring sound continued. Emma led the creature into the maintenance corridor. It was tight for something so big, but the creature managed. It moved with surprising grace for its size. Emma kept going, taking turns and climbing down ladders. The creature followed her through everything. She knew where she was going. Her family's quarters were 3 levels down and across the station. If she used the maintenance corridors, she could get there without being seen. Her mom was probably at work, and her dad wouldn't be home for another hour. She could hide the creature in her room until she figured out what to do. Emma climbed down another ladder. The creature couldn't use ladders, but it simply jumped down, landing with barely a sound. It was surprisingly quiet for something so big. "Almost there," Emma said. "Just stay quiet, okay?" The creature made a soft, huffing sound that Emma decided to take as agreement. They reached the maintenance access near her family's quarters. Emma checked to make sure no one was in the corridor. It was empty. Everyone was probably evacuating like the announcement said. Emma felt a little guilty about not evacuating, but she couldn't just leave her new friend to be caught by security. She opened the door to her quarters with her key card. The creature had to squeeze through the doorway, but it managed. Once inside, Emma closed and locked the door. "Okay," she said. "We're safe now?" The creature looked around the quarters with interest. It sniffed at the furniture, examined the walls with those 6 eyes, and finally settled down on the floor in front of the couch. It curled up like a cat, wrapping its tail around its body. That purring sound filled the room. Emma sat down next to it. She reached out and petted its head. The creature leaned into her touch. "I'm Emma," she said. "I guess you're staying here for now. I should probably give you a name." She looked at the creature's feet. The lower part of its legs was a lighter color than the rest of its body, almost white against the dark armor. They looked like socks. "I'll call you Socks," Emma said. "Do you like that name?" The creature, Socks, made a happy rumbling sound. Emma smiled. She knew her mom was going to be so mad when she got home, but Emma couldn't help it. Socks needed help, and Emma wasn't going to let him get caught by security people who didn't understand that he wasn't dangerous. She just had to figure out how to explain this to her parents. "How do you tell your mom that you brought home an alien creature that everyone thinks is a monster?" Emma decided to worry about that later. For now, she had a new friend. She sat on the floor next to Socks and started telling him about her day. Socks listened, his 6 eyes watching her, his purring filling the room with a sound that was strangely comforting. Outside, security teams were tearing apart the hydroponics bay looking for the Vexthor. They would search the maintenance corridors next. Eventually, they would search the residential quarters. But for this moment, Emma and Socks were safe, and that was enough. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent the last 3 hours in an emergency meeting about the escaped Vexthor. As one of the lead xenobiologists on the station, she had been part of the team studying the creature. She had seen the security footage of its escape. She had watched it tear through barriers that should have stopped anything. She was terrified. When the evacuation order came for the human quarter, Sarah had rushed toward her family's quarters. She needed to make sure Emma was safe. Her daughter was supposed to evacuate with everyone else, but Sarah knew Emma. The girl was curious, sometimes too curious for her own good. Sarah's hand shook as she unlocked the door to their quarters. She stepped inside and stopped. Her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Emma was sitting on the floor in front of the couch. Next to her, lying on its side like an overgrown cat, was the Vexthor, the creature that had put 23 security guards in the medical bay, the creature that could probably tear apart their entire living module if it wanted to. The Vexthor was purring. Emma was scratching it behind what Sarah recognized as its sensory ridges. "Can I keep him?" Emma asked. She looked up at her mother with those big, hopeful eyes. "He followed me home." "Emma Marie Chen," Sarah started, using her daughter's full name the way she only did when Emma was in serious trouble. But Sarah's words died in her throat as she watched Emma casually touch the Vexthor's venom sacs. Those glands were supposed to trigger an automatic defensive response when touched. The creature should have attacked. Instead, it just yawned, showing rows of diamond-hard teeth, and went back to sleep. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway. As a mother, she was horrified. As a scientist, she was fascinated. This was impossible. Everything she knew about Vexthor biology said this couldn't happen. "Emma, don't move," Sarah said quietly. "Mom, it's okay. His name is Socks. He's really sweet." "Socks," Sarah repeated. She was naming it. Of course she was naming it. Sarah took a careful step into the room. The Vexthor's eyes opened. All 6 of them focused on Sarah. The creature watched her but didn't move from its position next to Emma. Sarah moved slowly to her equipment cabinet. She always kept some basic scanning equipment at home for her research. She pulled out a portable bioscanner and turned it on. "I'm just going to run some scans," Sarah said, not sure if she was talking to Emma or to the creature. "Nobody move." She pointed the scanner at the Vexthor. Data started flowing across the screen. Sarah's eyes went wide as she read the results. The creature's stress hormone levels were incredibly low. Its threat response neurology was completely inactive. In every measurable way, the Vexthor was relaxed and calm. Sarah ran another scan, this time measuring the creature's behavior patterns. The scanner compared what it saw to the database of Vexthor behavior that the research team had compiled. The difference was shocking. In its containment cell, the Vexthor had shown constant low-level aggression. Here, in their living room, it was behaving like a domesticated pet. "This doesn't make sense," Sarah whispered. Emma stood up. The Vexthor immediately stood up too, following her. Emma walked to the kitchen area. The creature walked beside her, its massive head level with her shoulder. Emma got a drink of water. The creature sat down next to her and waited. Sarah watched all of this with her scanner running. The data was clear. The creature was bonding with Emma. Real, measurable emotional bonding, the kind you saw between humans and dogs, or Zentari and their companion flyers. Sarah needed help. She pulled out her communication device and called Dr. Vix, her research partner. Vix was a Thalnir, an insectoid species known for their analytical minds. "Sarah, where are you?" Vix's voice crackled through the speaker. "Everyone is supposed to be evacuating." "I need you to come to my quarters," Sarah said. "And Vix, this has to stay secret. Don't tell anyone." "What's wrong?" "Just come, please, and bring your analysis equipment." Dr. Vix arrived 15 minutes later. She took one look at the Vexthor lying on the Chen family's floor and nearly dropped her equipment case. "By the Great Hive," Vix breathed. "Sarah, that's—" "I know what it is," Sarah said. "Watch this." Emma walked over to the creature. She pulled a sock off her foot and rolled it into a ball. "Socks! Fetch!" She threw the sock across the room. The Vexthor, this apex predator that had evolved to hunt the most dangerous prey on one of the deadliest planets in the galaxy, chased the sock. It picked the sock up in its mouth, careful not to tear it with those massive teeth, and brought it back to Emma. It dropped the sock at her feet and waited for her to throw it again. Dr. Vix's mandibles clicked together rapidly, which meant she was thinking hard. "This is impossible. Vexthor don't play. They hunt, they kill, they defend territory, they don't fetch." "Run a full analysis," Sarah said. "I need to know I'm not crazy." For the next hour, both scientists ran every test they could think of. They scanned the creature's brain activity. They measured hormone levels. They analyzed behavioral patterns. Emma sat with the creature the whole time, talking to it and petting it. The data all pointed to the same conclusion. Something about Emma, something about humans, was affecting the Vexthor in a fundamental way. "We need to look at the evolutionary data," Dr. Vix said. "There has to be a connection we're missing." Sarah pulled up the Galactic database on her tablet. She searched for information about Krath 9, the Vexthor homeworld. The database had limited information because most species were too scared to study the planet closely. But there was one old survey done thousands of years ago by the Precursors. The Precursors were the ancient civilization that had seeded life across the galaxy. They had disappeared long ago, but their databases still existed. Sarah had never paid much attention to precursor data before. Most scientists thought it was just ancient history. But now, she searched through the precursor files carefully. She found the survey of Krath 9. The precursors had noted that the planet was unsuitable for advanced development because it already had an apex species. They also noted biocompatibility markers in the planetary ecosystem. Sarah's hands started shaking again. "Vix, look at this." Dr. Vix read the data. Her mandibles stopped clicking. "Those compatibility markers, they match Earth's ecosystem." Sarah searched for Earth in the precursor database. There it was. Earth had been surveyed by the precursors too. The notation was almost identical to the one for Krath 9. Both planets had been seeded with similar evolutionary templates. Both were listed as paired development sites. They were supposed to evolve together, Sarah said slowly, humans and Vexthor. Not on the same planet, but as part of the same experiment. Dr. Vix pulled up more data. Look at the environmental factors. Krath 9 and Earth have similar gravity, similar atmospheric composition, similar evolutionary pressures. The precursors were testing something. What happens when you take the same basic template and develop it in two different directions? Sarah understood now. Humans evolved as the social intelligence component. We developed tools, language, complex societies. We compensated for our physical weakness with our minds. And the Vexthor evolved as the protective strength component, Dr. Vix continued. They became apex predators with incredible defensive capabilities. But both species were meant to work together. Humans would provide the intelligence and social structure. Vexthor would provide protection and physical strength. But the precursors disappeared before the experiment could complete, Sarah said. Both species evolved alone. They both looked at Emma and the Vexthor. Emma had found a brush and was grooming the creature's armor plates. The Vexthor had its eyes closed, purring so loudly the sound vibrated through the floor. They recognize each other, Dr. Vix said softly. On some deep evolutionary level, they know they're supposed to be together. Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. This is going to change everything. Outside their quarters, security teams were still searching for the Vexthor. Director Kaltesh was organizing a station-wide hunt. Everyone was terrified that the creature would kill someone. But in the Chen family's quarters, a human child and an alien predator were proving that sometimes the galaxy's most dangerous monsters just needed someone to understand them. The secret lasted for 2 days. Emma woke up early to feed Socks before school. She discovered that he loved protein rations, especially the beef-flavored ones. He ate a lot, a whole lot. Emma started sneaking extra rations from the cafeteria, telling the food service staff that she was really hungry these days. Socks learned quickly. Emma taught him to stay quiet when other people were in the corridor outside. She taught him which room was hers and which was her parents'. He learned not to knock things over with his tail. He even learned to use the bathroom waste disposal unit, which surprised everyone, especially Emma's mom. Dr. Sarah Chen had decided not to report the Vexthor immediately. As a scientist, she wanted more time to study this phenomenon. She and Dr. Vix came to the quarters every evening after work, running tests and taking notes. The data was revolutionary. They were documenting the first case of human-alien bonding with a species that everyone thought was impossible to tame. Emma's father, Michael Chen, had been away on a repair mission to one of the station's outer modules. He came home on the second day and found a massive armored creature sleeping on his favorite floor cushion. He stood in the doorway for a full minute, trying to process what he was seeing. "Emma," he said calmly, "why is there a Vexthor in our living room?" "He followed me home," Emma tried. Michael looked at his wife. Sarah gave him a weak smile. "It's actually a fascinating scientific discovery. It's a creature that could kill all of us." "He wouldn't hurt anyone," Emma said. "Watch." She walked over to Socks and climbed onto his back. Socks stood up carefully, making sure Emma was secure. He walked around the room with Emma riding on his back like he was a horse. Michael sat down slowly. "I'm going to need you to explain this, all of this." Sarah explained everything they had discovered. The precursor data, the evolutionary connection, the bonding behavior. Michael listened, and as he listened, his expression changed from shock to wonder. "So we're supposed to be together," he said finally. "Humans and these creatures." "The data suggests it," Sarah confirmed. Michael looked at Socks. "Can I pet him?" Emma slid off Socks's back. "Go ahead. He likes scratches behind his sensory ridges." Michael reached out carefully. Socks leaned into his hand, purring. Michael laughed. "This is incredible." That evening, Michael made a mistake. He was in the engineering break room the next day, and he mentioned to a coworker that his family had been going through a lot of protein rations lately. Just a casual comment. He didn't think anything of it. But the station's supply system was automated. It tracked resource usage across the whole station. When the Chen family's protein ration consumption suddenly doubled, the system flagged it as an anomaly. The anomaly report went to station security. Security officers looked at the data. A family of 3 humans was consuming rations for what looked like 5 or 6 people. Either they were hoarding food, which was against regulations, or something else was going on. They cross-referenced the Chen family's quarters with the search grid for the missing Vexthor. The Chen quarters were in the area where the creature was last seen. Security put the pieces together. Director Kaltesh received the report. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he stood up, gathered a security team, and headed for the human residential area. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table when the door chime rang. Socks was lying on the floor nearby, watching her work. He lifted his head when the chime sounded. Sarah answered the door. Director Kaltesh stood there with 12 security officers, all in full tactical gear. Behind them, Emma could see xenobiologists with scanning equipment and what looked like weapons designed to fire nets. "Dr. Chen," Kaltesh said formally, "we have reason to believe that the missing Vexthor is in your quarters. We need to come in." Sarah looked back at Emma and Socks. There was no point in lying. "Director, if you come in, you need to remain calm. No sudden movements, no weapons drawn." Kaltesh's eyes widened. "It's really in there?" "Yes. And he's not dangerous. Please, just trust me." Kaltesh signaled his team. They entered the quarters slowly, weapons ready but not aimed. They stopped when they saw Socks lying on the floor. The creature lifted his head and looked at all the newcomers with his 6 eyes. "By all the stars," one of the security officers whispered. "Everyone stay calm," Sarah said. "He won't attack unless he feels threatened." Emma stood up from her homework. "This is Socks. He's my friend." "Absolutely not," Kaltesh said firmly. "Dr. Chen, that creature is classified as a Class 5 extinction threat. It cannot remain here. It cannot remain free." "He's not a threat," Emma protested. "He's sweet and gentle, and he's never hurt anyone." "It put 23 of my officers in the medical bay." "Because they were attacking him," Emma said. "He was scared and defending himself. Here, he's calm. Watch." Emma walked over to Socks. She sat down next to him and put her arm around his neck. Socks made his purring sound and gently rested his head on her lap. Kaltesh watched this with all 4 of his eyes. "That proves nothing. The creature could be waiting for an opportunity." "Then test him," Sarah said. "Have one of your officers approach him." Kaltesh turned to his security chief, a massive Kryn warrior named Drakthor. Drakthor had survived some of the worst combat in the galaxy. He wore armor that could withstand plasma fire. He was probably the toughest being on the station. "Approach the creature slowly," Kaltesh ordered. Drakthor moved forward. He was cautious but not afraid. As he got closer, Socks's head came up. The Vexthor stood, putting himself between Drakthor and Emma. His claws extended. The armor plates on his back rose slightly. A sound like grinding metal came from his throat. Drakthor stopped immediately. "It's showing aggression." "Wait," Emma said. She stood up and put her hand on Socks's side. "Socks, no, friend, this is a friend." The change was instant. Socks's claws retracted. His armor plates settled back down. The threatening sound stopped. He looked at Emma, then at Drakthor, then back at Emma. His tail wagged slightly. "He was protecting me," Emma explained. "He thought the big armored guy was a threat. But when I told him it was okay, he calmed down." Every scientist in the room was recording this. The behavioral data was incredible. The Vexthor understood human commands. It responded to Emma's emotional cues. It showed protective instincts without uncontrolled aggression. Kaltesh watched Emma walk over to his security chief. Socks followed her, staying close. Emma looked up at Drakthor. "You can pet him if you want. Just let him sniff your hand first." Drakthor, who had fought in wars and faced down nightmare creatures from a dozen worlds, was nervous. He held out his hand. Socks sniffed it carefully. Then, slowly, the Vexthor allowed Drakthor to touch his head. "Incredible," Drakthor rumbled. "I have never seen anything like this." Kaltesh felt a headache forming. He had 4 eyes and somehow all of them hurt. This was a diplomatic nightmare. Humans had been part of the galactic community for less than 5 years. They were already causing problems. They survived on foods that poisoned other species. They wanted to touch everything. They made friends with the station's maintenance robots. And now, apparently, they could tame apex predators. "Dr. Chen," Kaltesh said slowly, "you understand that I cannot allow this to continue. The creature must be contained." "Director, please," Sarah said. "Give me time to complete my research. This could change everything we know about the Vexthor species. Maybe about xenobiology itself." Kaltesh thought about it. He thought about the political implications. He thought about the scientific value. He thought about the danger. Finally, he made his decision. "The creature stays with your family under strict monitoring. You will have guards outside your quarters at all times. The creature is not to leave these rooms. If it shows any sign of aggression toward anyone except in defense of your family, it will be destroyed immediately. Do you understand?" Emma hugged Socks. "Thank you. You won't regret this." Kaltesh looked at the massive predator purring as a human child hugged it. "I already regret this," he muttered. But he had to admit, if only to himself, that he was curious to see where this would lead. 6 months passed. The Galactic Preservation Station had changed in ways that Director Kaltesh never imagined possible. The quiet research station had become the most visited facility in 3 sectors of space. Scientists came from across the galaxy to witness what everyone was calling the miracle of Station Kepler. The miracle was simple. Humans could bond with Vexthor. After Emma's success with Socks, Director Kaltesh had authorized a careful experiment. 17 more human families had volunteered to try bonding with Vexthor specimens from the breeding program. The station had been keeping these creatures in hopes of eventually releasing them back into the wild. Nobody had thought they could be tamed. All 17 families had succeeded. Every single human who spent time with a Vexthor formed a bond. Children were especially good at it. But adults could do it too. The key was patience, gentleness, and treating the creatures with respect instead of fear. The Vexthor, for their part, responded to humans like they had been waiting their whole lives for this. They were loyal, protective, and surprisingly affectionate. They learned commands quickly. They never showed aggression toward their human families. They were everything that the galaxy thought was impossible. Dr. Sarah Chen had become famous. Her research paper, titled Convergent Evolution and Cross-Species Bonding, the Krath-9 and Earth Connection, had been published in every major scientific journal. She had proved that the precursors had deliberately created humans and Vexthor as complementary species. Together they were meant to form a symbiotic civilization. The paper changed everything. The galactic community had to rethink what they knew about evolution, about the precursors, and about humanity's place in the cosmos. Emma walked through the station promenade with Socks beside her. He had grown bigger in the past 6 months. He was now almost 9 feet long from nose to tail. His armor plates had darkened and become thicker. But his personality hadn't changed. He was still gentle and playful, especially with Emma. Other species scattered as they approached. A group of Zentari merchants pressed themselves against the walls. A Thalnir family hurried their children in the opposite direction. Emma was used to this now. People were still scared of Vex Thor, even though none of the bonded ones had ever hurt anyone. "Good morning, Emma," a voice called. Emma turned to see Mrs. Rodriguez, another human who had bonded with a Vex Thor. Her companion, a female named Jade, because of her greenish armor tint, walked beside her. "Morning, Mrs. Rodriguez," Emma said. Socks and Jade touched noses in greeting, the Vex Thor equivalent of a handshake. "Are you going to the meeting?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked. "Yes, Mom says it's important." The meeting was in the main conference hall. The Galactic Council was making an announcement about Krath 9, the Vex Thor homeworld. Emma and her mother had been invited to attend. The conference hall was packed. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats. At the front, a holographic display showed an image of Krath 9 from orbit. It looked beautiful in a deadly sort of way, all dark continents and stormy oceans. The council speaker, a wise old Thalnir named Vextal, addressed the crowd. After extensive study and consultation with human experts, the Galactic Council has made a decision regarding Krath 9. The planet will be redesignated from Extreme Hazard Zone to Potential Colony Site pending human compatibility studies. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Emma listened as the speaker explained the plan. They would send survey teams to Krath 9, teams that included humans and xenobiologists. They would study how wild Vex Thor reacted to human presence. If the results matched what they had seen on the station, they would begin a colonization program. Humans would settle on Krath 9. They would live alongside the Vex Thor. Together, they would finally become what the precursors had intended them to be. "This is a historic moment," Vextal continued. "For the first time, we are attempting to complete a precursor experiment. We are reuniting two species that were always meant to be together." After the meeting, Emma and her mother met with the survey team leaders. They wanted to know everything about bonding with Vex Thor. How long did it take? What were the best approaches? What should they avoid? Emma told them what she had learned. "You have to be patient. Don't treat them like monsters or pets. Treat them like partners. They're smart, really smart. They understand more than you think." One of the team leaders, a human scientist named Dr. Park, smiled. "You've taught us so much, Emma. You're only 12 years old, and you've changed how the galaxy sees an entire species." Emma looked at Socks, who was lying at her feet. "I didn't do anything special. I just saw him for who he really was. Not what everyone said he was supposed to be." That evening, Emma sat in her room working on her application to the Galactic Xenobiology Academy. The Academy had created a special early admission program, and Emma wanted to apply. She was young, but her experience with Socks made her qualified in ways that years of study couldn't match. She typed her essay carefully. "I want to study xenobiology because I believe every creature in the galaxy deserves a chance to find their home, their purpose, and their family. Sometimes you just need the right person to see that you're not a monster. You're just lonely and looking for someone to understand you." Socks was curled up at her feet, his purring filling the room. He had become so much a part of her life that Emma couldn't imagine ever being without him. They were partners, just like the precursors had planned thousands of years ago. Emma's tablet chimed with a message. It was from Director Cal Tesh. She opened it. "Emma, I wanted you to know that your success with Socks has changed my entire career. I spent years studying dangerous creatures, always keeping them locked away. You showed me that sometimes the most dangerous beings just need someone to give them a chance. Thank you for teaching an old director new tricks. Also, I'm approving your Academy application recommendation. You deserve it." Emma smiled. She sent back a quick thank you and continued her essay. Outside the station, a transport ship was approaching. It carried 200 more human families from Earth. They were responding to the colony initiative. Every family had volunteered for the Krath 9 program. Every family had been briefed on the Vex-Thor bonding process. Every family had enthusiastically agreed to try. The galaxy was watching. Some species were excited about this development, others were nervous. Humans were already known as the strange species from the death world that did impossible things. Now they were befriending creatures that had terrified the galaxy for centuries. What would they tame next? What other impossible things would they do? Director Kaltesh watched the transport ship dock. He had a feeling that humans were just getting started. They had been part of the galactic community for 5 years. In that time, they had survived foods that killed other species. They had exercised in ways that seemed like torture to other beings. They had befriended maintenance robots, station computers, and now apex predators. "They're going to turn the entire galaxy into their petting zoo," his assistant said. Kaltesh signed another approval form for human Vex-Thor research funding. "Probably, and we're going to help them do it." "Why?" "Because the alternative is humans figuring it out themselves without our supervision. At least this way, we can keep some control over the process." His assistant looked at him with all 3 of her eyes. "You don't really believe that, do you?" Kaltesh watched through the window as Emma and several other human children walked past with their Vex-Thor companions. The creatures that had once been considered the most dangerous in the galaxy were playing fetch, getting belly rubs, and generally acting like oversized pets. "No," Kaltesh admitted, "I don't believe it at all. Humans are going to do whatever they want, and the rest of us are just going to have to adapt. But you know what? I think the galaxy might be better for it." In Emma's quarters, the young girl finished her essay and submitted her application. Socks had fallen asleep, his massive form taking up most of the floor space. Emma lay down next to him, using his side as a pillow. He shifted slightly, making sure she was comfortable, and his purring deepened. Tomorrow, more families would arrive. More humans and Vex-Thor would meet, more bonds would form. The first survey team would leave for Krath 9 in a month. In a year, the first colony ships would follow. The precursors had started an experiment thousands of years ago. They had created 2 species meant to be partners. The experiment had failed when the precursors disappeared, leaving both species to develop alone. But now, finally, the experiment was completing itself. Humans and Vex-Thor were finding each other. They were becoming what they were always meant to be. And it all started because a 12-year-old girl saw a scared creature tangled in irrigation tubes and decided to help instead of run away. Sometimes, Emma thought as she drifted off to sleep, the biggest changes in the universe start with the smallest acts of kindness. She had just wanted to help a lost creature. She never imagined that simple choice would change the galaxy. But that's how it always worked, wasn't it? You do the right thing because it's right, not because you expect to change the world. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the world changes anyway. Socks's purring filled the room like a lullaby. Outside, stars shone through the viewport. Somewhere out there, Krath 9 orbited its sun, waiting for humans to come home to a world they had never seen. Waiting for the Vex-Thor to finally meet the companions they had evolved to protect. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. And Emma Chen, a human kid who just wanted to help a lost alien, would always be remembered as the person who started it all. The end was really just the beginning.